We have a full panel tonight. We have Karyn Smith. We have Patricia Jones. You have seen both of them before. But tonight I've added Phil Rizzo, and Karen's son will be joining us just a little bit late, Will Yick. And we're going to start with
Yes,
Phil
I'm live
because
on Facebook and YouTube right
many
now.
of us endure domestic violence. But
Okay, gotta go.
sometimes domestic violence meets us out on the street or with a loved one, or sometimes in the form of an active shooter because of their own issues brought into the workplace or onto the street or onto a bus. And so Phil is here to talk to us about several different things. But I am first going to allow him, as I always do, to tell us who you are, where you've been, and where you're going. And then we'll get into some of the conversation. So, welcome.
Well, first of all, thank you, Tina, so much for inviting me. It's always an honor and to be on your show. Um, it's also is nice to spend time with Sister Karyn and Pat as well. So I have the opportunity to not only talk with you, but to share with your audience. I always say who I am really doesn't matter as much as what I have to say. That's what my name is, like you mentioned, Phil Rizzo, and I'm a security consultant. And where I've been, I've 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 been. I'm like Johnny Cash. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, and uh, I'm going is I pray. I pray in the right direction. I pray that the sum total of all how to go forward with my compass to move me into the directions that I need to be. So it's great to be here. I'm here to answer any questions that any of your audience may have or that any of you ladies may have. Feel free to use me. I'm here to be uh, of service.
So we can pick your brain a little bit. So I have a question, Phil. Um, what do what do you do when you see an act of violence on the street, whether it be between two men, two women? What can and should be done safely from your own perspective, but also from the perspective of the individuals involved in the altercation?
It really is. And it's a very delicate and sensitive question because I think, I believe professionally, especially in my state where I reside, Ohio is what's called an open carry, and it also has something called constitutional carry,
Mm.
and those refer to manners in which you can carry firearms. You can also carry a concealed firearm if you have a CCW. And Ohio has even gone as far as to not require a permit for a CCW.
So,
So
Phil, we have a question on the floor.
Ohio, for all intents and purposes, has really become the wild, wild west. So
Right.
if you see,
Karen's having some issues connecting. Phil, someone asked on TikTok, um, have you been in this type of situation personally? Some sort of
in a
altercation
domestic
on the
violence,
street.
oh
Have you
yes,
been
yes.
in this kind of situation?
have. I've been in a situation where my physical safety has been challenged, as well as my wife's physical safety has been challenged, and I've had to respond immediately. So, yes, I have extensive experience about what I speak of. And I was going to say, before the question came in, you have to be very, 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 very cautious if you're going to intercede in a situation like that. And I say that because a lot of people are carrying guns out there, a lot of
Mm,
people. And you can get yourself into a situation that you might not be able to get out of. So you have to be very careful, very cautious, and you have to be able to read the situation. And if you yourself are armed, you have to decide if the force that you use is going to be justified legally, because you can't just whip out your firearm and start blasting people. That just isn't the way it works legally. You have to have a justification, and there has to be a specific criteria according to the law. And I would recommend and suggest every person that's listening to this broadcast tonight to familiarize themselves with if they have a stand your ground law in the state and what self-defense really means in your specific state.
okay. Okay. Yeah, I know that I witnessed one situation outside of a pharmacy, and the only thing I knew to do then was honestly to call the police and to wait for the police to arrive. Many others had also called the police and were waiting for the police to arrive. Um, and by the time all was said and done, the individuals went off together who were originally in the altercation, and that was that. Um, but at the time that the altercation started, it seemed like it could go pretty far pretty quickly. And I know my brother has been arrested for intervening. so so I get your point too about the legal side of intervening, because he's been arrested for
I would leave
intervening
it
in a
up to the
fight.
law enforcement.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I would
All
leave
right.
it up to law enforcement. That's what they get paid to do.
That's the best thing to do. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Um, so I know that another thing that Phil does is works with clients who are preparing for court. What do you offer in that respect, Phil?
So in relationship to the domestic violence and in preparation for court, we provide a service that prepares you before you go into court in order to be the best witness possible. Oftentimes, it's a very stressful situation. Being in a domestic violence situation where you have to go to court, it's always high stress. So we prepare you to know what to do and to know how to do or deliver what you need to say from the witness stand. We don't tell you what to say because that has to come from your own heart, but we tell you how to deliver what you need to deliver. We tell you
Mm,
what's most important to be the best witness that you can possibly be on the witness stand. And just a few things that you can do right off the top of my head is, number one, to be a good witness, you have to listen. You have to listen, and you have to be sure that you understand the question that you're being asked. And it's important to only answer the question that you're being asked. It's not your time to ramble on. So you got to stay focused and you got to answer the question and listen.
right. Because sometimes they ask you the question in a positive way. It's kind of like Microsoft. They ask you the question in a positive way, but you say no. We can hear you and we can see you. Karen, can you hear us?
She may not be able to. She got a message that said move closer to the router, which
Hmm.
she has done. However, she may not see. She said she couldn't see us.
Oh, okay. Um, but I know that. Well, now I forgot what I was saying. Of course, we'll blame it on anesthesia. Not age or anything like that. Um.
We were talking
Oh,
about preparation before trial.
being in a
Um,
courtroom, yes, and Microsoft.
yeah,
Sometimes they ask the question where you should say yes, and other times they ask the question in a way that you should say no. And sometimes you read the question or hear the question and you're not sure which way it is being asked, and you do really need to listen and read carefully. That is so, so true. Let me see if this is Karyn.
yeah.
So now we have two Karyns. Woohoo! Nope, we're down to one. All right. Um, so Phil, I know that once upon a time you did share that you yourself were a survivor. Do you want to talk about that at all tonight?
Sure,
Since I
sure,
just told the
yeah.
worst, right?
If that's okay. It's you know me, and
I
it's part
do.
of my story. It's part of my. So if it could help anybody, sure, I'd be glad to share. We hear about it, and we often think that it only happens to women, but domestic violence can affect men as well. Um, I was in a relationship for 13 years that was plagued with problems, um, mostly problems caused by uh, my stepdaughter, uh, the natural child of the woman I was with. Um, because she didn't want us to be together, and she caused constant problems in the home. Um, but sure, men can suffer as well as women. It's not just something that only females suffer from. Like, I know from my experience, domestic violence, it's a pattern of abusive behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to gain or maintain power and control over another. It's also referred to as intimate partner violence, IPV or DV, domestic violence. Ways that you can be abused. Abuse doesn't form of being hit, although that's one major way. Um, you can suffer, like I said, physical abuse. There can be, in my case, there wasn't any issue of physical abuse because, to be honest with you, I don't know if my Italian temper could put up with somebody trying to put hands on me or hit me. I don't think I would have done well with that. I probably either would have ended up in prison. That didn't happen to me, but there also are issues with other people where they could be exposed to sexual abuse, emotional abuse, economic abuse. You know, it runs a wide range. There's also issues with psychological abuse and technical abuse where you might be prevented from having access to the
Oh,
internet or
I always
access
forget
to a
about
cell
that one.
phone or things like. Yeah. I mean, technical abuse, it can be any type of technology. Embedded devices, online spaces, platforms on computers, devices, cameras or imaging programs or stuff like that, or apps that might track. They might put an app to track you on your cell phone.
Right.
Any kind of these technologies that are available can be used to abuse. So yeah, long story short, experienced a very abusive relationship, which lasted over 13 years. Finally, I had had enough and packed pretty much everything I could get into my car, from the floorboard and that was on a Friday. I left on Monday, and that was in 2009. And I never went back. Never contacted the person again. I've been no contact, as they say, ever since the late summer of 2009. And, all the glory to God, because
Right.
I'm much better for it. Yeah, I lost a lot of material things, but those are just material things. And, there's nothing like your peace of mind. So I would encourage anybody who's going through a situation like that. It's not selfish to think about yourself. It's survival. So you need to put yourself first, and you need to do what you need to do to get yourself out of that situation, because there's nothing like peace of mind, and there's nothing like being able to sleep at night with a heart filled with peace.
That is the truth. So, Will, welcome. Your mom is having some issues with her connection. So hopefully she will figure it out. What is she saying, Pat?
Well, she said that she was having internet issues and she couldn't see us or hear us. So went in the room where the router said,
okay.
She's still having issues.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully it'll work itself out. So I want to introduce to you Will Yick. Will, can you tell us briefly who you are, where you've been, and where you're going? And congratulations, because Will just got married.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm William Yick. Who I am a product of two parents in the security law enforcement community. I followed suit along that path as far as protection. I joined the military, was in the Army and the Navy. Did that, got back into security. Now I'm currently doing executive protection. I teach martial arts. Also, I'm very big on having the tools to take care of yourself, to kind of be aware of your surroundings, knowing what to do, what not to do. That's been my profession, and I really enjoy teaching and passing the stuff that I've learned and stuff that I currently use right now at work to others, so they can be more aware to just have the means to be able to take care of themselves.
Okay. Well, I think it's important, as we, so many people think of domestic violence as a physical component of someone is hitting someone is shoving someone. So, and of course, more dangerous aspects as well. So, Will, in a relationship, when someone is being violent, should you be violent right back, or should you be peaceful or figure out a way? I mean, because my instinct is, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you.
Sure. Yeah.
If I'm out, because that's what parents tell their kids that come to school. If that kid bullies you, you bully back, or if that kid hits you, you hit him back. And the teacher is saying, no, that's not what we do. But sometimes in relationships, there is a back and forth, and it can be very hard for the police to figure out who is the perpetrator and who is the victim, and are they both perpetrators at a given point in time. So how do we frame all that? That's a lot. I just said a lot.
No, it's okay. Those situations are very delicate, and everyone's situation is a little bit different. A lot of thought has to go into, okay, if I don't fight back, if I don't defend myself, will this abuse continue? Right? Obviously not healthy. No one should be putting their hands on anybody.
Right.
Everyone has the right to defend themselves if they are being physically harmed. The other side of the coin is, okay, do I defend myself? Do I hit back? What are my options? You have to weigh the pros and cons, because, okay, are there children involved? Is this person stronger than you? Do they have access to weapons? You have to really factor everything. I'm big on training. I'm big about breaking down your situation, because sometimes it could make it worse if you're not mentally and physically prepared to do what needs to be done as far as taking care of yourself. But no, you should not be a doormat or a punching bag for anyone. But at the same time, you have to understand, if you're going to defend yourself and you're going to do what you need to do, you have to be aware of the pros and the cons of doing such a thing. I mean, not making a decision is almost as bad as sometimes making a decision if it leads to a very bad outcome. And so, to kind of answer your question, it really does depend on the situation. But no one should put their hands on you. No one should be physically or mentally or sexually abusing you. Absolutely not. And so I think that's why I'm big on teaching martial arts and how to defend yourself and how to take care of yourself, because when you have those tools, then you're better equipped, and increases your chances of, escape, survival, not being the victim.
Because we're not only talking about what occurs in a home, but at that point, you may need to protect yourself from what occurs out on the street.
Yes.
And that can be a very different scenario.
Right.
And it could be from a partner, because people are stalked and people are tracked down and people are sought after even after the EPO is in place. So, even though many times it may be a stranger, it may also be someone that you are familiar with, and that can bring on the domestic dynamic. So, Karyn, I think we see you.
Yes, I had to switch devices.
I think we hear you.
Yes, it kept showing me on stage, but I could not hear anything or see anyone. Just to back up Will and Phil with a couple of statistics. I'm not going to read the entire articles, but you can go online and check. Statistics are, now we all know everything is underreported, but 1 in 10 men are going through physical violence and sexual violence from partners or from other people, but primarily we're dealing with partners, family, that sort of situation.
Right.
But in terms of domestic violence, which educate, domestic violence is not just physical abuse. If a man is being yammered at, ridiculed, humiliated, financially abused, name called, coercive control, give me this or I'm going to do that. You don't want to do this for me? Well, I'm keeping my treasure shop closed and you can't have any. Sexual withholding. It is estimated that a third, repeat, a third, 33% of men are experiencing some form of domestic violence.
Wow.
If you add it all up, we're talking about
1 in 4 women, and I know I've heard 1 in 6, and 1 in 9, but I do believe that everything is on the rise, especially as the economy does not improve, as things continue to not be where they should be. And really, since the pandemic, a lot of things have still been still just have not returned to normal, whatever normal was, but some things are still in a pressure cooker.
I don't think it ever will, Tina.
I don't think so. I don't either.
It's out the bag now. People went to a new level of crazy. Women are now becoming more physically violent, more verbally abusive. So men are in greater danger now since 2020 than they were 5 years ago. And as we know, most men are not going to go report that they've been abused. The police will laugh at them. Well, you're bigger and stronger than she is, man. Yeah, but if I smack her back, I'm under the jail. She's going to have the bruise. And I'm like, here in Hawaii, it's mandatory 1 year. If she's got a bruise on her, you're gone.
Wow.
So as I educate in my videos, there are women who are holding men hostage and putting them in jail based on one, having unprotected sex the night before. They get up the next day. I need help with my rent. I need my nails done. I need my hair did, and that's $350 or $500. I need help with my car note. If the guy doesn't acquiesce, I was taken against my will, particularly with unprotected sex. There's the evidence, and the same thing for physical violence. I'm going to land my plane with this. On YouTube, there is a man who was a multimillionaire, and the only reason he did not go to jail was that he had his bedroom under surveillance. And it shows the woman in there slapping herself, just repeat. I mean, I don't know what drug she was on, but to hit yourself as hard as I saw her repeatedly doing. And then she called the police. Before they hauled him off, he was like, wait a minute, fellas, I need you to see my cameras because I didn't touch her. So men are targets. I get away from the word victims, but that's what they are. And I land that plane.
I know in my own situation, Phil had mentioned like a tracking device. In my situation, the individual that I was involved with actually switched sensors on the doors in order to, what he thought he was doing, I'm assuming, was prevent me from knowing which door was open and which door was closed, except I was leaving at the same time every morning and coming back at the same time every evening. And all the other ins and outs, no matter what the door said it was or which door it said it was him, with people in and out of the house that I was unaware of at the time. And I look back now and I realize there are all kinds of ways to technically abuse an individual. So that is, now I know you and Patricia have had both of these issues. Have you had did you have tracking devices, Karyn or Patricia, on your phone when you were involved with the individual?
No, I married the village idiot. He was not savvy at all. However, once I put that polecat predator reprobate out, I have many adjectives for him. He was smart enough to delegate his authority because I was helpful during the pandemic. Though I put him out, I arranged a bed for him in a nearby veteran shelter, which he managed to get himself kicked out of 6 weeks later. And they bend over backwards for you there. But what he did was he hooked up with tech-savvy veterans. Although I had blocked the phone, this is why I say, unless you got a domestic violence case going on and you want to get the recordings of him calling you and threatening you, if you want to go dark, you change your phone number. I blocked him. He had people calling me, but eventually what he did was appear downstairs, and something made me record this. I'll find you no matter where you go. There's nowhere you can run, nowhere you can hide, girl. And those were the exact words. 2 days later, I'm quarter of the island away in a city that we've never lived, worked, shopped, eaten, anything. I'm sitting inside the U.S. Post Office, and all of a sudden I hear his voice. I look up to my left, and there he is with his back turned and his hand over his mouth, talking to me.
Wow.
That's how I got the restraining order. But I'm going to put this little addendum in there. I just picked up all the paperwork. He never spoke directly to me, nor did I speak to him. But when I got the police report, it said that we were having an argument. I never spoke to him. He didn't speak directly to me. But yeah, that was it. In my case, he tracked me via my phone number, but nothing else. And I land that plane.
Okay. What about you, Patricia? Did you ever endure anything along those lines?
No, he is not technology aware. He is in the dark days, you know.
Okay. Okay.
All he do is get on YouTube, but he doesn't know how to track, or at least he didn't when I left 3 years.
So the individual
But I'm
that I was with is more tech savvy, although still not as bright as he might think he is, because I discovered some things after, like the switch sensors, um, but also he had left an old phone in the house, and because the cloud was open, I was able to see things on the new phone so that he hadn't closed the cloud. There are all kinds of ways, if you're not careful, that can definitely open you up to being able to see what's going on in another way, that perhaps you opened one time when you thought everything was safe to do so, because people share passwords. um, People share passwords. People share phones. They have a tracking device on their phone, the GPS, where they keep track of each other. But then when it all turns sour, you got to remember to turn all that off, and people don't, because Lord knows I can't remember my password for StreamYard sometimes, let alone all of those devices that you've got set up here, there, and everywhere to do this and that. So, um, any other words of advice or things that we should think about when we are going through this kind of situation when it comes to technical abuse?
I'm just going to add real quick. I used to turn my location off on my Android phone all of the time. And because I just happened to be looking at the phone, I would wake up in the morning and see my location was on.
Mm,
Well, working the phone because I was in a friend's house and I was watching my phone rather than television, I've noticed that with the Android phone, even though you turn the location off, it will spontaneously come on
mm,
without you doing anything. And if you touch satellite view, it shows not only the address of where you are, but an overview picture and the street you're on, all the way continued with Google Maps. So if a person has your phone number, they can track from where you are all the way back to where they are and have a route to come find you. And I'll land that plane.
Well, and we know there's a new app every day. WhatsApp, text messages, all these ways to create fake accounts and false phone numbers from where you were originally, because I get a lot of phone calls that are still not for me. And I get a lot of messages from people that reach out, seem to have one question, and when I don't respond, they still want to keep talking. And it's like, really? I mean, some of these are, of course, scams and hacks into your Instagram and your Facebook and your TikTok. And the best thing to do is just to don't engage. Like with the abuser, no contact. Don't have a conversation with them. Because they're trying to get the 6-digit code in order to change your password and this kind of thing. There are all kinds of ways to infiltrate systems, sadly.
Maybe Phil or Will could explain what a VPN is. I
Mm,
know it, but that's something we should all have, but I can't give you the explanation. I believe it hides your location. So, Phil or Will, can you explain what a VPN is so that we can add that to our phone security?
Yeah, if Will wants to take that, that's fine. All I know is that a VPN is a virtual private network. It's a set aside, or it's something away from your normal network. It is, as the term says, private, and it is more protected insofar as it's away from your normal network and your normal setup. So, I mean, if you can have a VPN or be near a hot, a hot source to where you can create and run a VPN, that's good. That would be preferable. Use that. It's more private. It's like using the app WhatsApp. WhatsApp is encrypted as opposed to other apps that are not encrypted. Encrypted technology is, and the good thing about WhatsApp is it's encrypted from end to end. That means message sent, message received, message bounced back to the sender. It's end to end encryption. So that's a benefit of WhatsApp as opposed to other apps. But that'd be all I would say about a VPN. If your network provider offers that, there are costs that are involved in that, so that's something you have to take into consideration. But if you can operate and run with a VPN, that's the way to go.
Okay. Any other advice for someone in a situation like this?
I cannot say it better than Phil did. He pretty much summed it up. But I'll add to the cost for the companies. Just do your due diligence and your research on the companies, because they all may charge different prices, and some might be a little bit more affordable than others. And they can still offer the same type of service. So if you don't have to pay more, why pay more?
Right.
You can pay a price that's, but, again, it's on you to make sure that you do your research and to check these companies, and just to make sure that, they offer all the same things all the other ones do. And if you can pay a lower cost for that, then that saves you a little bit more money, and you have the privacy at the same time. So.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So as
the only other thing I would say is that if you're in a situation like this, a domestic violence situation where your abuser takes you from one location to another. Now, in forensics or in crime scene analysis, that's called a secondary crime scene location. And if you ever watch a show like CSI or stuff like that, you never want to be taken to a secondary location, a secondary crime scene, because that is often where the hurt, the harm, the danger, and the death happens, especially if you're dealing with somebody who is a psychological killer. They pick you up at CVS, and then they take you to their farmhouse out in the rural county, and that's where they got all their criminal tools, and that's where they torture you. So you have to keep in mind that if you are going to get snatched up, you do not want to be taken to a secondary crime scene location, because, like I said, that's where the hurt, the harm, the danger, and the death occur.
That's true. That is true. So what do you do?
Well, this is a decision you have to make on your own in the heat of the moment.
As a woman, go ahead, Phil. I'm sorry.
You have to find a way to survive. I'm sorry. I was just going to say you have to find a way to survive. If that means you have to get out of the car while that car is going, you have to train mentally and physically to know how to roll. You hit the ground and you roll, and you try to dissipate that energy, because a lot of people don't understand it's speed and velocity that kills. When you're in a car crash, oftentimes, if you're going 80 miles an hour, the human body can't take those science impacts, those physics. So speed kills. So you got to figure out a way how to get out of that vehicle without striking your head, without doing something detrimental to your health. But you got to get out of that vehicle, because if you get taken to a secondary location, your chances of survival go down proportionally just by simply being at a secondary location. I mean, I know it sounds
to these things.
Scary, but it's the reality.
Yeah, that is the reality.
Giving thought to this in advance, whether you're dealing with a known abuser or just some crystal meth addicted or just some psycho. People in general, men and women, okay? But women because we are generally the weaker of the two physically. Prepare yourself mentally as well as any physical preparation you can do by self defense lessons, learning how to turn anything around you into a weapon. When Aunt Pat and I do the Zoom, we're going to ask Phil and Will to join, but there are things that you can make weapons out of an ink pen and other things that I'm not going to give away the secret because this is public. But here's the decision: if you're going to die, do you want to die in the shopping mall parking lot because this person says, come with me or I'm going to kill you, including if they have a gun? Okay? Make a moral decision. They have the gun. They want to take you to another location, as Phil was saying, because they've got all their tools and their plans and they have you somewhere very isolated. Now, obviously, I'm a warrior, so, and a believer. So I've got that Native American because I'm Cherokee on both sides. Today is as good as any other day to die. So my thought and my personal decision is to fight like a hellcat where I am. If this person is in fact going to shoot me, then I've got a better chance of survival if he shoots me in the parking lot of this shopping mall or garden center than if he gets me out into the woods and shoots me and no one can dial 911. So, ladies and gentlemen, start preparing because these are different times now. There's a new level of crazy that's out there since 2020. And you need to prepare and think about what you're willing to do to survive. Plane landed.
Yeah,
I
I
just
mean, we always say in the security industry, especially when we're talking about active shooter risk mitigation training, that you have to build muscles that you hope you never have to use. So you have to do the mental preparation and the physical preparation, as Sister Karyn mentioned, and as Will has mentioned many times, which he's an expert in. Um, you know, you need to learn. If anybody ever saw the movie with Jennifer Lopez, I think it's called Enough or something like that, where her abuser, her husband, she learns how it's. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
just speaking off the top of my head, if you're female and your abuser is a male, well, the genitals, the eyes, the throat, these are all very sensitive, very responsive areas on a male. I mean, and as Sister Karyn said, anything can be used or used as an IED, implemented, weapon. Uh, you can use an ink pen, like she said. I've seen a person go over the table with an ink pen and try to stab a hole in the CEO's neck. Thank God we were around the table in order to prevent that. But I've seen an ink pen used as a deadly device. Um, other thing I
Well, we
wanted to
saw it
say,
in Silence of the Lambs too.
yeah, yeah,
Let me stop for just a moment. If you're tuned in on TikTok or any of the other locations, you're listening to a platform and a podcast for the marginalized, the silenced, and the abused called Love Over Coffee, Voices Now Heard. My name is Tina Durbin, and I'm the podcast host. And tonight I have several guests in particular that are talking about the world in which we live in brings domestic violence not only into the home, but it also brings domestic violence out of the home and onto the street and maybe where you work or maybe where you live and maybe where you play. And for all those places, you need to have a plan. And having a plan means thinking about it before the moment it occurs. And so Phil is here. He is CEO of a security agency, a protective services company. They do various tasks some of which is to also prepare witnesses to go on the stand to tell the truth, but to tell it in such a way that is compelling enough and honest enough. And sometimes judges don't want to hear you being the doctor that diagnoses the illness of the perpetrator. So, may I say, judges don't like when you go in and say, "Well, he's a narcissistic sociopath," like I did.
Hmm.
That's what I did. But that's okay. I didn't know what I was doing then, and Lord knows he's more than proven himself. Will is an executive protector agency as well. He does a lot of work with self defense. Karyn had her own law agency as well, doing. I don't even remember Karyn, but Karyn.
Executive protection.
Okay, the same.
Executive. My first husband and I
Okay,
did executive protection for individuals, but a lot of events. So
okay,
both things and
okay.
locations.
And then Pat Jones and I are probably on the outside looking in, trying to figure out what we should do, right, Pat? You were gonna say something just a few minutes ago. So what were you gonna share with us?
I would recommend that the people who are listening contact your police department. I took a active shooters class in California where they taught me a lot of things, and it was sponsored. The neighborhood watch club arranged the police to teach this and show the different techniques. So, now is the time to be proactive for your own safety, because I'm here in Texas, and sometimes the popo don't come. So you need to know what to do in case, but do it legally.
Well, Pat, even if they do come, okay, that's another conversation. But well,
Let me just do a shameless plug here for Phil because he's just too modest. He does active shooter training, and if any 30 of us come together, he will put a class together for us to have active shooter training. If you maybe you don't have access to a police department that has that capability. When Aunt Pat and I are doing the Zooms next year, we're going to be campaigning, that is to say, taking names and numbers or emails for people who want to get involved with active shooter training, and Phil will conduct that class. And then self defense. Next, later, Will just got married. Congratulations, son. I'm bragging. Um,
Thank you. Thank you.
um, I know things are hectic for him right now, but I think it's safe to say that by 2024, he'll be good to go with self defense for survivors. And he also teaches children. He has classes where he teaches women, he teaches children what to do. And in vetted situations, and I mean very vetted, including we're going to do a background check. He's also a firearms instructor. So that's where you can have one on one training with him via Zoom. You can go to the range and set your camera up as well as him teaching you. But um, Phil, with the 30 or more for the active shooter is something that I want to pursue myself because I've never had an active shooter training class, and I would love to get that and make that happen.
sadly, I have. I have had because I'm in the school system, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
that is a in the school system, they teach us when you go to lockdown. In fact, there was just a teacher here in my area. The school went to lockdown, and in lockdown, you are to move the children away from the door, away from the window, away from being seen. You are supposed to lock your classroom door, which now all buildings, the doors locked from the inside, not from the outside. You need a key to get in. And you're supposed to lock down the classroom, and the hardest part for a teacher is if you have a student out of the room that's in the restroom or maybe has gone down to the office for some reason or something, you are not allowed to open that door under any circumstances. So once you hit lockdown, your door locks. You are not to unlock it, not even for anyone who says, I am the police or anything like that, because they may not be. They could be the active shooter. And the child that's out of the room, you have to assume and trust that they will be protected by the office where they went, or the nurse's office where they went, or the bathroom where they went. I mean, we even teach students to stand on the toilet seat so they cannot be seen. It's a scary time. And I'm talking little kids. And, I think about the older kids and how much they can handle and how difficult that still is. But for a young child in an elementary school, it's really quite a stretch sometimes for my brain to think about that this is even possible. But it is, and it does happen. And being prepared, we can't use code words anymore. I've been in a school system where they try to use code words, but if you're in and out of the building and you're not there on a daily, I had no idea what the code words meant.
Yeah.
So when they said Mr. Brown was out on the playground, I had no idea that it meant there was someone out on the playground and to keep the kids inside. I kept asking who Mr. Brown was. I thought he was an old teacher who came to visit. No more. We're in lockdown. We're this. We're that. And that's a lot of trauma for
Yeah.
children. Just the
Yeah.
words. We're in lockdown. We can't open the door for our friend. I don't know where Sarah went. She went to the office. I'm sure she's fine. But it's a scary thing to think about for a child. I don't know. sometimes, sometimes mm, mm, scary.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
it's
know what the
scary.
answer is.
It is scary. It is scary. It's
Yes.
scary for us adults, and it's scary for us professionals too, who deal with it all the time. Um, but it's a reality of our everyday living. I
Mhm.
think we just saw yesterday there was
In
another
Maine.
active shooter. 18 people were killed, and and I definitely would be interested in being of service any way I can. When we train to evacuate, hide, fight. Some people train to run, hide, fight. We train to
Mhm.
evacuate, hide, fight, because if you tell somebody to run, they might not know where to run. We train to evacuate, which means get
Right.
out of the building, get away. And we also try to approach this with a survivor's mentality, one that says, you say to yourself, I will live through this. I will not
Mm.
be passive, because being passive in an active shooter situation will do one thing. It'll increase your chances. So you have to remember your life matters and that no one has the right to take your life from you. And we will, with our training, arm you with the essential information so that you'll be prepared to prevent and respond, and most importantly, react to an active shooter situation if one occurs. So it's something we do all the time. It's our bread and butter training
Right.
uh, module, and but it's something that everyone needs to know, because let me tell you this: if you're at a church, if you're in a school, if you're at a bowling alley, which we saw yesterday in Maine, if you're at a shopping mall, if it doesn't matter where you are, okay, a movie theater, anywhere you are, trust that's where the guns are. So
Mhm.
you got to be prepared. You got to be ready.
Well, we're coming up on the hour. I want to give everyone just a final word. Um, but I do want to say, shameless plug, um, Love Over Coffee has grown into a subscription box series. It is a self love and self care box. and it is created with efforts to heal trauma. And so all of the activities, the items, the knowledge, the information that's inside the box is to promote, encourage, and help you practice self love and self care rituals. And um, this particular box is in regard to going back and healing the inner child. Also, before I say goodnight, I do want to say, before I let my guests have one final word, I want to repeat again, this particular podcast is dedicated to my cousin Susie. Her name is Suzanne Heiler. She is in the hospital right now. Um, she is probably not going to make it much longer, but she has endured a lifetime of abuse, and she is certainly a survivor. She has endured much from exes, from family, and through addiction. And so I want to again dedicate this podcast to her. So, with that, any final words? And we'll say goodnight.
I would just say don't let your fears affect your faith. You teach people how to treat you, and don't ever get comfortable with someone disrespecting you. Once the enemy is inside the wire, it's too late to react. You got problems, so you have to act before that. And the value that you place on your life is the extent that you'll go to protect it and defend it. And with a narcissist, there's always a surplus of problems, but a deficit of solutions. So keep that in mind as you go forward. And always remember, if you don't protect yourself, who will? So let that be your guide.
Thank you, Phil. Anybody else?
I just want to say that I left a 46-year marriage, and they don't get better, they get worse. He's trying to poison me, force me to take some pills that I don't know what it was. So just know that at any time your life can be in danger, and you have to put yourself first and don't worry about what any other person thinks or say, because it's happening to you. Because sometimes when you tell someone something that's going on, they'll say, "Oh girl, I don't believe that." And so you have to make your own choices and make your own decisions. And it may not be popular with everyone, but make sure you are comfortable with the decision that you're making. And it requires you to plan ahead before you leap into something. Thank you. Um,
My ex husband used to say, prior planning prevents piss poor performance.
mhm.
That's true.
Yep. Do that. Do that.
Go ahead, Miss Karen, your final thoughts.
All right. Plan, prepare, and prepare for the worst case scenario. As Brother Phil said, when it's already happening, it's too late. So you need to prepare with the what ifs, whether you're dealing with an abuser, a stalker, or just some crazy in the street. What are you going to do? When you go out to a restaurant or any building, do things like, as my son Will made me keep thinking about situational awareness. Where are the exits? If somebody came in here and was going to say, hold up, what could you dive behind? Where could you possibly go to get out of easy view? And I'm not an active shooter training, but this is just a matter of security for yourself. If the abuser enters where you are, where could you hide in this particular location? I want to do, quote, a shameless plug, and it's not shameless. For Miss Tina here, those of you who are watching, whether you're on TikTok or on Facebook, she has a YouTube channel. Please take this video that you are looking at right now and go listen to it again on YouTube. It's Love Over Coffee, LLC 432.
Nope.
Love
Wait.
over coffee
Nope. I need to change it. Real Change LLC 432. I know I don't
on YouTube.
on YouTube. The real it's
Okay.
REL Change LLC 432. So
Okay. Great. You
go
guys heard it.
ahead.
Go give her a like, leave her a comment, and let the whole video play because the algorithm reacts to how long the video plays. So if you've already seen it on Facebook, put it on while you're washing dishes or doing something. Let's help our friend Tina out. I'm Cluster B Free Karen. God gave me that title. I was coming up with a YouTube name and I went, oh, wait a minute. That's how I got in trouble in the first place. I didn't ask you about this guy because you probably would have told me then. But now I'm listening. Living life cluster B free is important. It is a better life. It has Aunt Pat and I can tell you that all of our years, decades with these individuals, life is good. We experience peace and joy now. For instance, and do things. You see this hat I'm wearing? I love the cowgirl part of me. The ex would ridicule me and make fun of me wearing a cowboy hat. I had one when I first met him, so I stopped wearing them. Now I have a collection of Hawaii hats. I'm working on a collection of cowboy hats or cowgirl hats and the boots. I'm indulging myself in country music. So live healthy, be safe, hydrate, take your vitamins and your supplements. If you have a faith, now it's time to execute it and start practicing it because the Holy Spirit will whisper in your ear, don't go around that corner. Trust that voice. Trust your own gut instinct.
Mhm.
That is something that you had those reactions when you were in the love bomb period with this negative person. Things may have been beautiful and wonderful, but your guts told you some warnings and we all ignored them. I know I did.
I do.
So pay attention this time around. Trust your guts. And I land this plane. Thank you, Tina.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to say one last thing. I think it might be Carol who shared this, something she wrote tonight. Um, Before I share what she wrote, tomorrow night my guest will be Nikki G. We're going to compare and contrast um, cult narcissism and domestic violence narcissism, and also what are some of the common traits of survivors from cults and survivors from narcissistic abuse. How are they the same and different? On the 30th, I have someone from TikTok who will be joining us. And on the 31st, we will wrap up the month with Gina Medico and talk about what have been some of the highlights and some of the takeaways. But here's what Carol wrote. I believe it's Carol. It just says Facebook user, but it says, I want to share a little something I wrote. I can put on Gucci clothes, spray some heavenly scent, style my hair with not one out of place, dripping in style from head to toe, brightest smile, flashing some jewels, posing in front of a Lamborghini, dying on the inside from pain and heartache. Looks can be deceiving. Just because you can't see the inside of what a person is going through doesn't mean everything is okay. Try treating others with the respect you want to be treated with. And I think that is one thing we need to think about when we're out on the street and we're in our workplace and we're in school, that we treat each other with the same kindness and respect that we know we deserve and are worthy of. Because, as Phil has pointed out, you never know what is on the other side of a person's smile or on the other side of a person's depression. And we need to be prepared for both. So, with that, I will say good night and thank you so much. I believe it is Karen's alarm.
I finally found it. I've got 3 phones, and I'm like, I see every phone and the tablet. Where is this coming from? But I found it.
So Karen and Pat are quite active in their advocacy. And sometimes it is necessary for them to have more than one phone and more than one phone number and more than one way to contact an individual whose life is at risk. I was surprised, and I hope that the United States government is listening, because October is not the month to do a federal testing of the broadcast system when people have phones.
Exactly.
When someone has a phone that is unknown to anyone, especially their abuser, you don't want the damn thing going off by itself. So, so for those of us who are quite active in advocacy, it may not be completely foreign that we have more than one way to contact us. I'll just leave it at that. So, thank you so much, Phil, Karen, Pat. I don't know what happened to Will, but that's okay. We will make sure that all of his information is shared as well. I did share Phil, and I'll share it also on the other post as well, because comments don't carry over unless it's on the post you shared too. So sometimes it does, but I'm not always certain it does. But I'll make sure it's all there, Phil. So, by the way, healthy looks good on you, even though my. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to say good night on TikTok first.
Thank you for having
So,
me. Thank you to sisters
oh,
Karen, Tina, and Pat. I'm grateful
it's
to
good
you.
to see everyone.
I send my love and thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me.
Take care.
Love you,
Thank you,
Phil.
everybody.
Love you
Bye.
too.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. See ya.
Good night. Aloha.
I'm going to say good night over here on the Real Change and on the in the groups and all of the other places. Thank you so much for stopping by. And again, we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I have a feeling tomorrow I may try to match some jewelry with my bruises. You know, one must look fashionable. So take care, everybody. Thank you. Love you too. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Night.
Night.